This is the S.J. Childs Show, hosted by S.J. Childs, streaming on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Find us on all social medias. The S.J. Childs Show, bringing value to families through education and resources. Check us out weekly, where we'll have new and exciting guests. Thanks so much for your support. Enjoy the show. This episode is brought to you by S.J. Childs Books for Children. Visit sjchilds.org today to check out their special needs book collection. Teach inclusion and neurodiversity in this special 7-book collection. Get yours today. Sponsors include Blinky Minky Blankets, handmade double-sided Minky blankets, highest quality and craftsmanship, creating your perfect blanket for your loved one as a special forever gift. Code word the mouth for discount today. By Dana Ball Legal Services. Avoid common legal mistakes and protect your small business. Dana makes it affordable for your Utah small business to avoid common legal mistakes with business operations, contracts, and employees. Get more information today at danaballlaw.com. By Moving with Autism, a service for autism families seeking real estate and design services that provide support for their child's development and family lifestyle. Natalie Castro is a Utah autism real estate specialist and autism sibling whose mission is to connect families to community support with sensory-friendly designs and relocation services. By Elevation Chiropractic Center. Get started on your path to full health. Elevation Chiropractic Center uses the upper cervical chiropractic technique to get results by identifying and solving the root issues of your medical condition quickly and safely. Elevation Chiropractic Center, Salt Lake City, Utah. This story is brought to you by Water and Body Basics, West Valley City, Utah.
Hi, and welcome to the S.J. Childs Show. I'm your host, S.J. Childs, and today I have a very special, exciting guest. I'm sure we won't laugh at all, except for when we do. And please meet John Vorhaus. Did I say that correctly?
You're in the ballpark.
Say it correctly for me.
It's Vorhaus. That rhymes with, well, never mind. It's easy to remember.
Well, and I'm really good at phonetics. So thus my problem in pronunciation is that I always have to think it's phonetically spelled.
I used to think that I was burdened with a joke name, and that therefore all of the torments of my youth and all of the fractures in my personality could be attributed to getting bullied over my name.
Yeah.
But I've come to realize it doesn't matter what your name is. They're going to bully you about something.
Oh, isn't that
Even
true?
if your name is Joe Smith, they'll call you Average Joe or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, they know. They'll come up with it.
A way.
Yeah, that's certainly true. So true. You have had a very exciting career in life, comedian, writer, actor. Tell us a little bit about that and, what got this all started for you?
Well, the two controlling ideas of my life are a magpie's affection for new things. I'm drawn to new things like magpies are drawn to shiny objects.
Yeah.
And an aversion, like an almost blood aversion to being an employee of anyone.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Just could never feel comfortable in that space.
You and I are so much alike.
We're siblings from another parent.
I think so.
to degenderize that phrase. So from about the age of 25, I quit my last so-called normal job. I was an advertising copywriter, and I realized I'd come to a crossroads pretty early in my life because they were offering me some fame and, money and validation to do what I was doing. But I had this terrible fear that I might wake up at the age of 40 and realize I'd spent the best years of my life making the world safe for advertising.
Yeah.
That just wasn't going to happen. And also, I had the idea that I didn't want to wait until I retired to enjoy my life.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of weave that into the possibilities early on. So I quit my job and made the fantastically unstrategic choice of becoming a singer-songwriter. Now, my thoughts were that as a singer-songwriter, I could find the shortest distance between myself and my audience. I had these thoughts that I wanted to share. I could compose them as songs and sing them and play them on guitar and reach my audience that way. I neglected to consider two important things that I couldn't do particularly well, and that is sing and play guitar. So I spent about 5 years on the folk circuit in New England, but mostly kind of skilling up my entrepreneurial chops, getting really used to beating my head against the phone, creating opportunities for myself, leaning into opportunities that presented themselves, and really just getting good at being adaptive and versatile.
Yeah.
So by the time I moved to Hollywood in 1985, I moved into situation comedy, and I had some good success there, primarily because I could write for a bunch of different kinds of shows. I was pitching and working on shows as different from one another as Married with Children and Wonder Years.
Yeah.
And then I branched out into hour drama, and I dabbled in horror and thriller. And I came to understand that I was using the same creative problem-solving tools in different ways to meet the writing needs that I faced. Also came to understand that Hollywood as an industry is one that is very adept at extending and withholding validation. And so I went through a kind of a rocky period where I felt really good about myself because Hollywood was giving me so much validation. And then when the newness of me wore off and I stopped getting that validation, I entered a crisis period.
Yeah.
Since I no longer had external validation to prop me up, what's going to prop me up? And that's when I made the fundamental life understanding that validation has to come from within, approval, acceptance has to come from within, because that's the only currency that has any value in the emotional space between our ears.
I love that.
That realization gave me a lot more bandwidth to pursue projects that were meaningful to me and to chase economic opportunities that came about. I wrote this book called The Comic Toolbox, How to Be Funny Even If You're Not. Most people who know me from that work. It's the first book of some 24 that I've written. And in some ways, it continues to be the difference maker in my career. No, in many ways. Because thanks to that book and the advent of the internet, which came about at the same time, suddenly I was getting inquiries from people I'd never heard of in countries I'd never been to, saying, hey, we really like this work. Is there any chance you would come and teach us what you know? And I'm like, let me see what the deal is here. I get to travel around the world exchanging information for experience and money. Sign me up.
Heck yes.
And 37 countries later, I've made quite a career out of that, and also fulfilled that earlier thing about not waiting to retire to enjoy the life or lead the life that I wanted to live.
Yes.
If you ask me what holds all of this together, what's the glue? No, that's not the right word. What's the fuel that drives this engine? I can boil it down to 4 words, and they're not just useful to me. I think they're useful to everyone. The 4 words are, don't fear bad outcomes. A lot of what holds us back is just the sense, if I try this thing, it's not going to work out, and it's going to fail so spectacularly that I will die. Obviously, that's not a realistic
approach.
Outcome.
Yeah.
Well, it's not credible. You're not going to die. Your failure is not going to fail you.
Yeah.
It's going to inform you. And in my case, it's just left me wide open to embrace every new experience, whether I think I can pull it off or not.
Yeah.
And I could give you countless examples from my life where my strategy has been, if there's something I want to learn how to do, I find someone to pay me to teach it with no fear. No fear of failing to teach it, but rather with the certainty that as an avid learner, I'm going to bring something to the teaching experience that someone who is a seasoned practitioner in that field will never bring. And the only thing that keeps me from doing that is the fear of failure, of which I have none.
Yeah, exactly. I love that too, because you really have to step in. You have to lean into those fears. You have to lean into those to get the opportunities. That's how opportunities come to you, is by you opening yourself up to receiving all of those wonderful things with the belief in yourself that you can accomplish and retire early and go and enjoy your life. And, for some of us, enjoy success with, family or however, being an author. I think that that's so wonderful.
Can I tell you there's a trap in the notion of retiring early? Because if one follows the path that you just described, self-actualization, choosing your projects according to where your passion and your purpose lie, doing stuff you love to do, it kind of negates or renders irrelevant the idea of retiring.
Really retiring. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
As I enter the final decades of my life, my motto is finish hard.
Oh, I like that.
Isn't that
I
great?
love that. Yeah, I think so. That's how I try to go every day,
Yeah. Friends say I have a gift for reducing complex concepts to trivial one-liners. And I think that's a good example of it.
Definitely. Oh my goodness. What kind of inspired you? Where did you get your inspiration? Anybody exciting, special, a book or anything, movie?
Well, that's a really good question. I binge read authors in my youth, and I was really impressed with the idea that the same voice could produce so much different story content that was still in the same frame. If I enjoyed an author, I enjoyed his or her entire body of work. When I spent 10 years writing poker books, hello, where did that come from? I was an avid poker player and as a recreationalist, but I was also writing about poker in poker magazines before poker got hot. And then when poker did get hot, I went to my agent and I said, I think I can sell a book in this market. And he said, I can't sell one, but I know I can sell 3. And
I get to work.
Well, he said, if you can create a series, that's what will sell in this market. So I created the Killer Poker series. But in discussions with him, I said, I don't really think I have got 3 books worth of stuff to say about poker. And he said, sure you do. If you have the contract, you'll find the content. And he was not wrong.
Yeah.
So that caused me to reflect upon the work of authors who I admired, not just for the quality of their writing, but for the depth and breadth of their career. And I thought, if they can find new things to say, then maybe I can too. And like I said, I ended up writing 10 books on poker alone.
Wow.
So they range from the sublime to the ridiculous. I wrote a book. I co-authored a book with poker great Annie Duke called Decide to Play. The book is called Decide to Play Great Poker, and it is legitimately one of the top poker books to date. But then I turned around and I wrote a spoof of my own book called Decide to Play Drunk Poker, which is not on anybody's top 10 list or even top 10,000 list. But it was really gratifying to me to examine both sides of that question, from the serious strategic to the comic non-strategic.
Yeah, definitely. Well, even in the series that you said, you had written for previously, from the diversity between the two, the, really comedic, like Married with Children, that kind of style, and the Wonder Years. I mean, they're so separate from one another. Same, and so that shows right there that same inspiration that you drew from that.
And it also goes back to the question, we can set versatility as a goal.
Yeah.
You could say, as a writer, I wish to train myself to be versatile, or a singer, or any other creative practice. But the specific process block that stands in the way is the sense that this is my lane and I have to stay in my lane. And so if you're like me, you kind of claim all lanes as your lane, whether you belong in them or not.
Agreed.
And that gives you a real opportunity to seize new chances or new opportunities for growth that come along, but only if you can be fearless enough, or again, not fearing bad outcomes enough to put yourself up for it.
Take some risks.
I can't tell you how many times in my life I have sent out emails to people just randomly saying, I think you should hire me to do X or Y. And how much of my thinking at that moment is, of course they're going to say yes, just because I'm me and I bring so much to this and I'm so right for it. And I've been right a bunch of times and I've been wrong a bunch of times, but that gobsmacked optimism has never left me. And even now, today, I'll come across something that looks like, hey, that might be cool for me. Let me go for that. Just last week, I was I put myself forward to be a color commentator on a professional ultimate frisbee video feed. Yeah. I mean, I've been playing ultimate all my life, so I know a thing or two about it. And I've been in broadcast booths with poker and for other reasons, but I'd never really done this before. And somebody asked, will you do it? And I said, heck yes, why would I not do it?
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh, I love that. I love the opportunities that this is all brought about, and just in those types of things. You take the opportunities that arise by taking risks and getting new opportunities that come about. So that's wonderful. And it kind of, answered the question, like what you, go ahead, what you're going to say.
I was just going to say the word risk is associated with so much fear. I fear to take a risk. It's almost automatic that your relationship with risk should be a fear relationship. And it certainly is true if you're talking about, free climbing El Capitan. It's legitimate to be afraid of that. But when it comes down to things like, hey, should I go out to my first live open mic? Or should I try to get a job doing corporate stand-up, or should I send a song in to an artist who I might want to record that song? Those risks, they're not physical risks. They're emotional risks, and they specifically risk our sense of emotional well-being. And once we separate physical risk from emotional risk, then we can say of emotional risk, the worst that can happen is they say no, and I don't get a positive outcome. But if I don't ask, I'm still going to get a not positive outcome because I'm not going to get any outcome at all. Viewed through that filter, you have everything to gain and nothing to lose by just throwing out the window and see if it lands.
Absolutely. Invest in yourself, because there's nothing that can go wrong with that. Mm-hmm. Like you said, if anything, you'll learn a lesson to try something a different way the next time, or whatever the case may be. Moving forward, what are your plans, and what are you going to be doing next?
Oh boy, that's a great question.
Right? Give me your 5 year. No, just kidding.
I can give you a 5-year plan. Right now, I have creative practices in visual art, in nonfiction writing, and stand-up comedy. And we'll talk about the visual art in a second, but the nonfiction writing and the stand-up comedy are coming together in my new book called The Little Book of Stand-Up.
Okay.
Which will be out toward the end of the year. And it will be a companion to my book, The Little Book of Sitcom, which they're both designed to give you a lot of information and a lot of inspiration without requiring that you read too many words. But my experience is, in this world we live in, people's attention spans are getting smaller and smaller. So I want to make sure that I deliver a content package that is useful but not overwhelming. Left to my own devices, I'm going to make everything 500,000 words. That's not going to work out because I love to write. While I'm advancing on that front, I'm also advancing my active practice of art. I really ramped it up during the pandemic. I started it a few years ago, but I really ramped it up in the pandemic. And the watershed moment for me was during the pandemic. I did what I called the 100 Head Project, which was 100 self-portraits in 100 days, posted on Facebook as a fundraiser for Doctors Without Borders. And meeting the challenge of rethinking my art, reinventing, making art every day, really upped my game to the point where I passed out of, I want to be an artist, and into, I think I kind of am an artist.
Nice.
And if you're watching on video, you can see all of the images in the background. That's my stuff.
It's beautiful. I was going to ask if that's what that was. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Love it.
Today I have my first installation at a local cafe.
Yay.
I'm out there in the world with my art for the first time.
At one of my favorite places to be, too, the cafe.
Yes, there you go. If I'm to be honest with myself, as I try to be, I reckon that I am this. As an attraction for whatever, my thoughts, my comedy, my art, anything at all. I can fill a room, I can fill a classroom, but I can't fill an auditorium. I'm kind of a rarefied taste. I'm kind of an acquired taste. I'm pretty smart, and I kind of require that people who work with me operate at my level. So what this means is that I have an unfulfilled aspiration to be huge in the world. And I'm going to be 66 years old next month, and I kind of recognize that aspiration is probably not going to be resolved in this lifetime. But I also have a long history of making meaningful impact in more people's lives than I can count. So part of what I need to do in the years to come is to continue to advance my creative practices along the lines of my strength, which means figuring out how I can reach the people I want to reach as meaningfully as possible and not worrying so much about the big picture.
Yeah.
This is also useful for people who are in my situation. They're what we call creative entrepreneurs, with the full understanding that, man, it's a crowded space out there. How is my art going to be seen? How are my words going to be read? And especially, how am I going to make money on this when there are so many other people out there who are delivering the same kind of content, and they're happy to do it for free, just for recognition, just for validation, which I completely honor. I've been there myself. I am there myself. The way I like to think of it is this: the world we live in, and especially the internet, where our work is being seen more and more, it's like a giant, it's a realm. And my little tiny part of it is an amusement park. It's a tiny amusement park in this vast, unknowable space. And all I can do is keep improving and expanding my little amusement park and inviting people to come visit.
Yeah.
It's not going to rival Disneyland. It's not intended to rival Disneyland. In order for it to rival Disneyland, I have to be corporately engaged with someone like Disney. That ain't going to happen. All of which comes down to recognizing and honoring what I'm good at, and also recognizing and honoring my limitations without driving myself too crazy about roads not taken and what if scenarios.
Yes, definitely. So what would you say then is your definition of success that you've had?
The simplest definition that I go to in knee-jerk response: success is enjoying your days.
Yeah.
And that's a little disingenuous, because there's so much that goes into success that involves creating the kind of life where you can enjoy your days, getting out from under a full-time job, just having enough money, time, and resources to do what you want to do. Let me see if I can give you a better answer. For creative people, or searchers, seekers, we can say that there's something called our practice. Okay, you can have a practice of art, or practice of music, or practice of comedy, or practice of spiritual exploration, practice of anything. When people engage in a practice, they're often thinking about, what will this lead to? How will it pay off? But my experience of practice is, if I invest in my practice, if I do my creative work, it creates greater capability for me to stay in my practice, and greater motivation for me to stay in my practice, which is all I want to do anyhow.
Yes.
Be in my practice as much as possible. So for me, success is recognizing that I am in my practice and taking conscious, self-aware steps to advance and expand my practice, so that I can be in my practice more and more as time goes by.
Yeah, I absolutely agree and love that, because the same way. I love podcasting. I love to listen and connect with people and hear their stories, and just learn from the wisdom of the experiences that they have had. And there's so much to take away, so much value. Where can people find your books and your programs, things like that? Send us on a chase.
I before I answer that question, I have to frame it in a couple of different ways. One is, I recently did a podcast with some people in Great Britain, and after I gave my pitch, they said, "That's what's different about you Yanks. You're not afraid to tell people what you're doing and what you have for sale. We don't do that in Great Britain." We're always like, well, probably people won't want to go to my website, but if they did, they could find it here. The other thing is, every time one is asked to self-promote, as a creative person, there's a lot of tension, a lot of nervousness in that space, because there's always this little voice inside our head that says, you're asking for people to spend real money on your stuff, and you actually think it's worth anything? This is the demon voice inside our head. To surface this issue, when I do in-person presentations, when I'm at classes or master classes or big seminars, I always come to the end of my presentation with this. I say, ladies and gentlemen, I'm now going to throw the floor open to questions. But as I do, as is my practice, I reserve the right to take the first question psychically. And then I go, Yes, that is a very good question. I do have books for sale. Let me tell you all about them.
I love that.
You can see that the joke explodes the tension
Yeah.
that is informed by the insecurity about promoting one's works. But the fact is, if you're going to be an artist of any kind, and I'm using artist in the broadest definition, you're going to have to create and you're also going to have to promote. Otherwise, your stuff is just never going to be seen.
Absolutely.
With all of that said, let me introduce your listeners and viewers to the marvelous world that is John Vorhaus. Ladies and gentlemen, if you know my name, JohnVorhaus, then you pretty much have the keys to the kingdom, because my website is johnvorhaus.com, and there you will find a number of books that you can buy in print form or for very easy digital download, not very expensive. Some of them are hardcore useful, like the Little Book of Sitcom. Some are more obliquely useful, like my book, A Million Random Words, not available in print form, only digital form, because it runs to 5,000 pages. But it's a real handy resource for all kinds of creative endeavors. And I created it as a joke, but it's sold a few copies because people do see that they can find character names, story ideas, found objects, hidden poetry, all kinds of crazy stuff in there. So johnvorhaus.com, that gives you a certain set of my books and also a peek at my art. Then with John Vorhaus, you can type my name into your Amazon search field and find your way to my Amazon author page, which has a bunch of other books, some the same, mostly different, because on my Amazon author page, there are a lot of books that other publishers hold the rights to, as opposed to the ones that I hold the rights to. But my entire body of work is there, including especially the Comic Toolbox and Creativity Rules, and my great con artist novels, The California Roll, The Albuquerque Turkey, and The Texas Twist.
I love that.
Plus a bunch of other books.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I have somebody that wants one of those 5,000 words, but I'm going to talk to you about that in a minute.
Okay. But wait, there's more. Because as you know, I'm also an artist, and I've put a lot of my images and graphics into a Redbubble store. People listening won't see this, but here is an example of a beautiful coffee mug, which I took one of my original works of art called Light as a Feather. And I know you're interested in disability mobility issues, so I thought you would be particularly
interested. I love that, actually. That's great.
Thank you. And it's available on mugs, T-shirts, towels, bath mats, anything you can think of.
Love it.
And finally, if you know my name, you know my email address, because it's john.vorhaus@gmail.com. And I always welcome direct interaction with the world out there. It's how I build my business, how I build my practice, and how I satisfy my soul. So,
what a pleasure to have you here today. It's been so fun. It's been a wonderful conversation. I absolutely thank you for your time and space to be here. So, very gracious.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Have a great day.
You too.
Think positive, test negative.
Hey, I like that.
I have that on a mug. I have that on a mug as well.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here, John. We'll talk to you soon.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Blinky Minky Blankets, handmade double-sided Minky blankets, highest quality and craftsmanship, creating your perfect blanket for your loved one as a special forever gift. Code word the mouth for discount today. By Dana Ball Legal Services. Avoid common legal mistakes and protect your small business. Dana makes it affordable for your Utah small business to avoid common legal mistakes with business operations, contracts, and employees. Get more information today at danaballlaw.com.
By Moving with Autism, a service for autism families seeking real estate and design services that provide support for their child's development and family lifestyle. Natalie Castro is a Utah autism real estate specialist and autism sibling whose mission is to connect families to community support with sensory-friendly designs and relocation services. By Elevation Chiropractic Center. Get started on your path to full health. Elevation Chiropractic Center uses the upper cervical chiropractic technique to get results by identifying and solving the root issues of your medical condition quickly and safely. Elevation Chiropractic Center, Salt Lake City, Utah.
This story is brought to you by Water and Body Basics, West Valley City, Utah.